Jean Marie Schappacher. My maiden name is Hughes.
Roy Norbert Schappacher.
I kind of said, as Roy being one of the twins, I know this is going back, but as being a twin, two different doctors, they're both Dr. Kavanaughs. They delivered both twins at different times. Roy was born first, and he took the middle name of the first Dr. Kavanaugh. He's Roy Norbert, and 6 hours later, his twin Russell was born. He's got the name Donald Kavanaugh because the other brother delivered him. I was born in Carthage, Cincinnati, Ohio, during the Great Flood of Cincinnati in 1937, the Great Ohio River Flood, historic flood. I was born on the 3rd floor on Vine Street, and the river actually flooded down onto Vine Street that day.
July 19th, 1937. Reading, Ohio.
My mother actually came from a farm family. Back in the days when they actually got married very young. My mother was only 13 years old when she got married. My dad was 18. So my mom actually had her first child at 14. She had a very, very busy life. Well, at the time, right away, she ended up having 4 children. She basically was a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids. She really couldn't work. Actually, women didn't really work back then. They stayed home with their children.
Watch kids, watch the house, and cook.
Well, my dad, he worked at Carthage Mills, which was a factory that made linoleum flooring. He worked there until he was actually drafted into the Navy during World War II.
He is a mechanic. He worked at Reading Garage for 30-some years. He worked up there his 8 hours or so a day, and then when he quit, he came down to my uncle's house, Al Shear, and they'd work out there for another 4 or 5 hours. He just doing mechanical work. After quite a few years of working there, he opened his own gas station up in Carthage. And he done mechanical work there, sold gas. He was a very busy person. He just loved to work, and it's always mechanical work, which I never did learn to do.
Actually, my favorite memory of my parents was when we would go to visit my grandparents in Kentucky. The car trips that we took were a lot of fun, driving through the hills of Kentucky. Back then, there was no interstate. Driving through the mountains was scary, but it was so much fun taking the trips, going to Kentucky to visit the grandparents on the farm, which was fantastic. The memories there are unreal. No electricity, no water in the house, no indoor bathrooms. Everything, if you wanted to eat, you went out to the garden and you pulled the vegetables from the garden. If you wanted meat, you had to kill the chickens. There was nothing modern whatsoever. My memories there were so great. You did the washing, you got barrels were set at the corner of the house to catch rainwater, to do the laundry. It was just great. Like I said, if you wanted a meal, you went out and everybody pitched in. If you wanted water to drink, you had to go up and down a couple of hills to get drinking water to bring back to the house. Those were my best memories when we would visit my grandma and grandpa.
You said there was no interstate. Was the road paved, or was it dirt or
There
gravel?
were blacktop roads, but there was only 2-lane highways, and it took a long time to get anywhere. The roads, yeah, it was really bad, but Now the interstates, they carve through the mountains, so it's not so bad driving through the mountains, but then it was really scary. No guardrails going around these cliffs. It was very scary, but it was it was fun.
They were very nice. We had a good life. Like I say, there was, I think 8 of us, wasn't it, brothers?
Yeah. Actually, he had all brothers, all their names started with R. Ralph, Ray, Roy, Russ, Richard, Roger, Ruth, and Robert. One girl. I really didn't know my childhood. I didn't know much about my dad because I never saw much of my dad, my childhood life. It was just mom. So mom had a very hard time raising. At that time, there ended up being 7 of us. And so mom had it really hard because my dad was never around. So the childhood life was bad. I didn't know family life like most people do between their families. We didn't have the modern convenience that you all have. We didn't have, actually the house I lived in, we did not have a bathtub. We did not have a shower. We did not have hot water.
How did you bathe?
We just had to, actually we had to wash at our kitchen sink. And can you imagine with having 7 kids and a mom and dad to try to find the privacy to be able to get into the kitchen to wash and to do your hair and everything? It was really difficult. We lived in a 3-room upstairs apartment. And so our refrigerator wasn't even like you have today. We had ice delivered to our house. We had an ice box. And like I said, we didn't have all the modern convenience that you all have today. Very difficult. And having 7 kids with 3 rooms. We had a kitchen, the living room, and a bedroom, which all 7 kids basically slept in the living room. We had day beds that opened up 2 beds, where the girls slept in one bed and the boys slept in the other, and mom and dad had their own bedroom. So
It was a nice house on 65th Street in Carthage. I think we had about 3 bedrooms. And then a normal kitchen, living room, and that. It was nice. We all managed to hang out in it.
another interesting thing about that was my aunt and uncle lived across the street from this house. Little did I know that when I grew up that I would marry one of these boys. I used to look over at that house and see them climbing on the roof and hanging out of the windows and in the trees. So like I said, I never had any idea that I would end up marrying one of these boys. They look like a bunch of monkeys climbing all over the place up there.
What were you doing climbing up there?
Oh, just having fun looking out climbing up on the walls and on the, I don't know, we just,
Well, you told me one interesting story about climbing up on the shed or the roof, looking at the window next door.
well, we peeked a little bit.
A little more. My neighborhood back then was average, like most neighborhoods. Well, not fancy neighborhoods the way they are now, but back in that time of the day, it was good. Everybody lived. Their means were about the same. Yes, I had a lot of fun in my neighborhood. Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of people there, but it seemed like it was all right. Everybody seemed to get along pretty good with everybody. I mean, some of the families had kids our ages. We played with everybody. That it was a good street, and all we done was walked a lot and walked down to there was a Mill Creek down the end of the street, and we walked down there and throw rocks in the creek, and then take a walk on the tracks. Then after a while, when a train come by, we jump on a train and ride that for a mile or two, and jump off and wait for the next one to come back the other way.
Another interesting story about his family too. They took one of his brothers once and stood him on a wagon, put a rope around his neck from a tree, and pushed the wagon out from under him. Luckily, his brother lived. They were full of mischief over in that house. Actually, there was no religion in our house. There was nothing. My mom took us to church once that I remember, but there was never any prayer said. There was no religion really basically spoken in our house. My grandma, which was my dad's mother, she went to a Baptist church in our town, and I started going to church on my own. And when I was 13 years old, I actually got baptized, because I always felt, even though my family did not go to church, I always felt like that I was being called to go. So I actually started going to church on my own, and I actually became baptized myself when I was 13 years old.
Well, we'd go to church for sure every Sunday, and our parents taught us to behave the right way. We tried to, I guess, but it was we were Catholic. None of us regret being Catholic. Matter of fact, over the years, I actually thought about becoming a priest. When I went to high school, I went to Roger Bacon, and it was all priest teachers. And I told a couple of them what I thought I'd like to do later in life, and they encouraged me, and they say, study this, do that, and do that. But I don't know. I guess after a couple of years, I finally realized what girls was like, and I guess I didn't need to be a priest anymore.
I think he meant me. Well, I had a great time with my brothers and sisters. When you have 4 brothers and I had 2 sisters, it was like any other family. We fought a lot, but we played together a lot. Many times I would come home and my sister would have on my blouse, which we would get into arguments over because I was going to wear it that night or whatever. But we had a great time, regular brother and sister thing. I had a fantastic time with my brothers and sisters.
I got along probably with all of them. Of course, most of my brothers, they all like to go hunting and fishing. And I would go with them at times, just to walk and watch and see what they were doing. But I never was much with the hunting. Matter of fact, I think it was Ray, he told me, shoot this gun. Well, I never did shoot a gun before, but there was an old building out there with windows, and they just said, shoot them windows out. And I'd go to shooting. I don't think I even hit the building. I told them I didn't know how to shoot. So outside of just stupid stuff like that, it was a good relationship.
History. I loved history because the history teacher that I had, if you knew your history well, you were her pet. So I loved history. So I got along very well with her, but actually because of her, I actually liked history. I didn't until I knew that I was going to be her pet. Yeah, so I actually loved it after that.
I think arithmetic. I like that. I mean, pretty good figures, what's figures, so that's why I liked arithmetic.
Drawing. I love to draw. I love to draw. So, they actually would take my drawings and put them on the board of the other classrooms because I did so well in drawing. They would put them up in the other classrooms to use them as illustrations.
Probably riding trains.
Well, believe it or not, with the my home life, I was really outgoing as a child. Very outgoing. I wasn't. What do we say? I don't know how to describe it, but I was very outgoing as a child. I had lots of friends, did lots of things with my friends, got along well with everybody. So
I was mainly a pretty good kid. I might have a few say I wasn't, but I thought I was. And never really ever got into any trouble I know of. So I was a good kid.
oh, I had a lot of friends as a teenager. As a teenager in school, I loved playing kickball, softball, basketball. I was a cheerleader in the 8th and 9th grades at school. Went to a lot of house parties with my friends. We had a really good time as a teenager. And well, as teenagers getting up a little bit older, went to a lot of dances. A lot of dances. I loved to dance. That was one of my favorite things, was dancing. So.
All right, I know what house parties are like now. What were house parties like when you were young?
Our house parties back then were like spin the bottle. You probably never even heard of that today, but that's what they were. There were no drugs. There was not drinking back then like there is today, drugs and drinking. Ours were just fun parties, and it was really a lot of fun. Yeah, they were dancing, a lot of dancing at our parties, yeah.
Well, my older brother Ray, he had a car, and I don't know, I think we put 15, 16 people in it, and then we'd take rides, and go here, go there. We just had a ball. I mean, everybody went together and chipped in for gas or whatever. And we even used to, after we got a little bit older, we go to friendly bars and have a drink or two, and that was all right too. We used to even go to they had parties at
Copling's.
yeah, a park, and they'd sell, I think, 20 glasses of beer for $1 or something. And of course, we'd drink all them.
They used to play German polkas all the time because, believe it or not, they didn't check your ID or anything either, because I used to go there also. And we'd go up there on Sundays and they would do the polka all the time. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
And I was saying they sell 20 beers for $1. Of course, we had a lot of beer mugs in our house after that. But that one time Ray's car was full of beer glasses. We went up to Reading, I think it was. I forget the name of the bar we went. Well, we was going to, but we got stopped by the cops. And I think a couple of them beer glasses fell out. And they wouldn't know of course they knew where we got them. I mean, I think it said right on there. So we took a ride to the police station.
And I was really glad that I wasn't with them that night, because I know my dad would have killed me. I was so happy that I wasn't. My dad didn't have to come to the police station to get me. I would have never lived through it. Actually, we met up at Doppy's. It was a favorite hangout for all the teenagers back then. Had a jukebox in there. We'd go in there and get our RC Cola and our stick pretzels, listen to the jukebox. It was a favorite hangout.
And bowls of potato chips.
Yes, bowls of potato chips. Actually, I met most of his brothers before I met him. They used to hang out there first, and then all of a sudden he started hanging out there.
Yeah, she went out with my brother Ray and my brother Russ. I was a leftover.
Well, I hadn't met him yet.
Well, we met in the car, but everybody, and I think her too, thought I had a girlfriend, Ethel.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
They thought I liked her, and I thought, get
Well,
rid of her.
Actually, Ethel turned out to be the sister
Right.
of the girl that Ray actually married. So it was kind of a close relationship around there. Everybody knew everybody.
But we'd all be together, 17 of us in that car. And a lot of our, after we left Oppie's and whatever else we'd do, we'd go to a girl's house named Donna Spenny. And we'd party over there, stop and get some beer, some, the other things, pizzas, and then stay up there till midnight. But we partied over there a lot. Had a good time.
Actually, we did have beer when we shouldn't have. We did drink beer at those parties. Yes.
Oh, I think Red Daniels and what? Red Daniels?
Yeah.
What was that? Whitey something?
Yes, Whitey Hamlin.
Whitey, they're old enough, so we told them to give them some money and told them to go down and get beer. I mean, I drank beer then pretty good. You might have even had a beer too.
I did. I remember sitting under the kitchen table. I don't really want people to know that, but I did. I think our first date, I think we actually went to Crosley Field and watched a Reds game.
Exciting, huh? No, I think my dad drove us down there,
Yeah, his dad went along for our first date.
and they played a doubleheader in Chicago, and parking. Of course, the Reds was good with getting attendance, a lot of fans there, but it was rough parking, and the way the people down, they charge you to park, but then they'd park his car this way and this way, and it was a doubleheader. Well, we didn't stay for the whole doubleheader. Well, we wanted to leave. We go up and get in our car. We couldn't get out. It was my dad's car he drove. And so all of us boys, we thought, well, this asshole has done that. We'll fix him for doing that. So we turned around and broke the cozy window on the car, and so you get in, and then 4 or 5 of us pushed, and one guy drove. We just pushed him till we could get our car out, and then let the guy out in the middle of the street. I mean, he didn't know what happened, and then we took off. So that was our life there, but I hope we taught that guy a lesson.
Our first kiss, well, actually, we would drive around. Back then, you didn't have any place to go. We drove around by the schoolyard. We always had our certain spot where we would pull over by the curb, and that's where we would go to kiss and hug. Yeah, we just pulled over by the side of the road. That was our place to go. We didn't have a park to go to, like some people go to a special place. Ours was just on the side of the street.
Well, I liked her all the time there. But like I say, everybody thought I liked that Ethel, or Ethel liked me, and I couldn't stand that woman. Boy, I'd have kicked her out of the car if I had the chance. But I knew we got rid of her some way. I don't know how, but I guess right after that, back at Doppy's, I don't know. I don't think we talked much talk or nothing, but we agreed to go out with each other.
Well, I knew I wanted to marry him because he's all I could think of. When you go to work every day or whatever, and he was on my mind all the time, so I knew I wanted to marry him.
Where'd you work?
I worked for the Disabled American Veterans. And so
Where did you work?
you were
As a
working as a
bricklayer.
hod carrier.
Hod carrier.
Started out as a hod carrier and then became a bricklayer.
I had to mix the mortar, carry the bricks. If they needed join out there after they laid the bricks. I helped join it out.
Then after he did all the hard labor, then they taught him to actually lay the bricks. So he actually became a bricklayer. But he started out carrying the hod. You know what? There was not actually a proposal where you get down on the knee and say, "Will you marry me?" We actually just knew that we wanted to get married. We just started talking about the day we would get married. There was not actually a proposal like they do today with the big to-do, the big thing that they do now. We just started talking about the wedding date and just started planning the marriage. Actually, I ended up, I was actually going to the dentist having fillings put in my teeth when the dentist actually discovered that I had a huge cyst in my jaw. And I ended up having to go to the hospital and have this cyst removed, but in order to do that, they had to take all of my upper teeth out to take this cyst out through my gums. And of all times, he asked me to marry him when I had no upper teeth at all. So yes, he did ask me to marry him when I had no teeth, waiting for my teeth.
That was good, I think. We got married at St. Charles Borromeo. That's church and school that I went to. And I don't think we was allowed to go over the...
Yeah, we had a church wedding, which was nice, but at the time I wasn't actually Catholic at the time, so we were only able to actually go up to the altar. We weren't allowed to go up beyond the altar, but we had a church wedding with the bridesmaid and the groomsmen and everything. It was a nice wedding. We didn't have a big reception like they do today. After the wedding, we actually went back to his mother's house, his dad's house, and had our reception there. We drove around that whole day, with the car was all just married on there, and all the things were hanging from the back of the car. We drove around the neighborhood blowing the horn all day, went and visited some of his relatives, and then that night we went to a bar somewhere around town with the people that were in the wedding party. We went out that night, but during the day the reception was at his mom's house. But it was a beautiful wedding, beautiful. And then we also went to a studio and had our wedding pictures taken. We lived in a 2-room apartment in St. Bernard when we were first married, for a short time, for a very short time.
On Greenlee Avenue.
Yes. It was fantastic. When you're first married, you are so in love. It was great. We thought we had it all. It was great.
Not a week.
No. It was 13 months after we were married. We got married in October of '55, and we had our first child in November of '56. You want to go first on that?
I have a bunch of kids. Just told us to love our kids and teach them right, and I think we did.
Well, I can just say that my parents taught me that I wanted to bring into mine, because my parents, what I didn't have when I grew up, because my dad, after the Navy, became an alcoholic, and I did not actually have a home life when I was being brought up. So I knew what I wanted to bring my children up with, because as I was growing up, I never took any of my friends to my house, because I never knew that if I went home that my dad would be drunk because of his alcohol, which is a sad thing. I'm not saying that I didn't love my dad, because I did love my dad. It's just unfortunate that a lot of the guys that go into the war come out as an alcoholic, but I was too embarrassed to bring my friends to my house. So I don't even recall having conversations with my dad, going places, doing things with my dad, which I wanted my kids to be able to bring their friends home whenever they wanted to, that everybody would feel welcome to come to my house. I wanted my kids to go to church. I wanted them to know God. So I wanted my home life to be entirely different from what I had. And actually, after Roy and I got married, I actually wrote my dad a letter. And I explained to him what it was like with my home life, what we missed. And I told him what we missed out on life as growing up, and what it was like not to have the home life that other children had. And you know, after we were married at this time, because I wouldn't have done it before I was married. I was too afraid to do it. But after I was married, I wrote him this letter, and I was actually told after that my dad actually cried. And you know, and after that, my dad actually started coming to our home and started visiting us. So I was really glad after that, because it really changed things. And he actually came around and he started coming to the house to visit us. So it changed him. It changed him also. So I'm happy about that.
Don't look at me. You wouldn't want me to let me name them.
Actually, I just picked names that I liked, names that I knew that I liked. I picked Kelly's name because this man that worked for Roy's dad at the garage that they worked at, this man, his name was Kelly, and I always liked that name right from the get-go. That's how I got Kelly's name. I just picked names that I actually liked. And Annette's name was a girl that I went to school with. I always loved that name, so I picked her name because I loved it every time the school teachers would call Annette. It's just a name that stuck with me, so I chose that name for her. It was just names that I liked for no particular reason, just names that I liked. And he never ever cared whichever name I picked. He just went along with it. Probably knew he didn't have a choice. Well, actually, all the kids were actually born at Good Samaritan Hospital, and I didn't realize that they wouldn't let you name a child unless it was a Catholic name. I wanted to name Rick. I was going to name him Ricky, but they wouldn't let me name him Ricky. They said that was not a Catholic name. You could not name him Ricky. And it kind of threw me off when I couldn't do this. Nowadays, you can name your kid Cat or Dog or Sky or Blue, whatever, but back then, you couldn't do that. So I ended up naming him Richard. For some reason, I just didn't come up with a middle name, which I'm really sorry that I didn't. I'm really sorry about that, Rick. Sorry about that, Rick. You don't have a middle name, but that's what happened there. And besides, I was so young and naive, I guess. I don't know why I didn't do that. But
Now with your girls, you always wanted to name your girl Annette, but you had two before her. So why didn't one of them get that name?
you know, I don't honestly know why. I guess for some reason, God must have just held that name back for a special reason. $90 a week.
Yeah, well, I thought it said make $3 and something an hour. So if I make $3 an hour, 40 hours, that's 120.
Well, for some reason, I thought it was $90 a
Well, I
week.
probably
But
didn't work.
between 90 and $120 a week.
I didn't work 40 hours a week because it was winter time.
Yeah, it was very, very low amount of money. We had to really skim to get by back then. And did you say, how did we get by? Is that what you said?
Yeah, how did you manage to raise so many on that income?
It was difficult. Back then, hamburger was 3 pounds for $1. Actually, I think in order to make ends meet, I used my grocery, I limited $35 a week to buy groceries. We lived on hamburger fixed every which way you could do it. We always had potatoes, corn, and a hamburger fixed every which way you could. I would buy these little boxes of Jiffy cake mix and Jiffy cornbread mix. little boxes of Jell-O. So every night I would buy this little Jiffy cake mix. We would have this little cake and Jell-O. That was our dessert. That little cut up in 9 pieces of cake in our Jell-O, but we would have hamburger either made as meatloaf or little hamburger patties, or put that hamburger in macaroni and cheese or whatever. But yeah, our limit was $35 a week to buy groceries, and the
That
rest
included a carton of cigarettes.
Yes, back then that included a carton of cigarettes, believe it or not.
And I never smoked.
Then why'd you buy cigarettes?
And also back then, I made the clothes for the girls. I made their clothes. And I always shopped at Shillitoe's Bargain Basement for clothes if I bought clothes. Yeah, and I cut all the boys' hair. They never went to the barber shop. Actually, I don't think my boys went to the barber shop until they actually got married. Until they left home, I still did their hair. I still cut his hair to this day. Actually, all of my kids were easy, but I have to say David was the easiest. He was probably the most pleasant, easiest child. He never complained about anything. He always sat around with this cute little smile all the time. He would not wake me in the morning for breakfast. He would sit outside the bedroom door quietly when I would open the door, and he'd look up with this little smile on his face. Never complained about anything. I wouldn't say none of them were really difficult, but I would say that Rick probably doesn't want to hear this. But he was the most mischievous. I hate to say this because I would probably get locked up today, because I basically had to lock him in the room at night, because he would get up in the mornings and go out into the kitchen, pull all the drawers out and climb up on the countertops and go through the cabinets. I was afraid actually he might fall on a knife or something, or get into something that he was going to hurt himself. He actually even put Kelly out the bedroom window one morning. I heard a knock on the front door, and here Kelly was standing at the front door because Rick knew the door was locked. They couldn't get out, so he put Kelly out the window. And anyway, Rick was always the little mischievous one. And in the daytime, when I would try to get the kids to take a nap, I put all the other kids in their bed and they would just go to sleep. But I put Rick next to me. And then I would pretend like I was asleep, and Rick right away, he would jump off the bed because he thought I was asleep and start to run about to do his business. So, I mean, he wasn't a bad kid, but I just knew I had to keep an eye on him all the time. So, other than that, I mean, just a little mischievous, that's all. Oh, it was loud, but it was good. The kids because they had so many brothers and sisters, we didn't really even need neighbors to come play because they had each other to play with. You know, there was a lot of commotion going on, but like I said, they didn't really have to have neighbors. And also, I didn't have to have babysitters either, because I had from 18 years old all the way down to like 4 years old. I mean, so I had my own built-in babysitters. But when they were young, growing up, you know, you had a lot of fights, a lot of crying, I had it first or whatever, but yeah, it was good. A lot of screaming, a lot of crying, a lot of fighting. Hectic. A lot of times it was me crying. A lot of times it was me crying over just spilled milk, but I had to clean it up so many times a day, you know. Or sometimes Roy would come home from work because I would be so mad, saying, when your dad gets home, your dad's going to beat you. But then he would come home from work, he says, well, I haven't seen him all day, you know. I don't want to, I haven't seen my kids all day, so I don't want to be the one to come home and hit them, you know. But anyway, it was good. It was good. I wouldn't change it. Absolutely, I couldn't ask for a better father, because he was a good father because, as I just said, I'm the one, by the time I would get frantic sometimes during the day because I might have a hectic day, or maybe the kids would have a note from the teacher that your kid did something in school, and so I would scold him, and I'd say, and when your dad gets home, he's going to scold you. And then when he would come home from work and say, what I just told you, I haven't seen him all day, I don't want to come home and scold my kid, whatever. But when they were little, he would come home from work, he would let the kids climb all over them, and then whenever, he was always good about helping me with the kids. He would, anytime he would go out of the house, he would say, all the kids, where do you want to go with me? Just jump in the car. He would take them with him wherever he wanted to go, which would get them out of my hands for a while. I couldn't ask for a better father. He was good with the kids. Oh, and also, whenever I would have a new baby come home from the hospital, he'd say, for the first 2 weeks, you don't have to do nothing. I will get up and feed the babies during the night. I never had to do nothing for the first 2 weeks at all. So that was really a big help.
That was hard on me though. She was nursing them.
No, I only attempted to nurse twice. I only attempted that twice. Most of the time it didn't work out for me, but he did. He was really good about that. First 2 weeks, I didn't have to get out of bed at all to heat that bottle because, when you're nursing, that is nice. You can feed them right away, but boy, when you have to get up and heat that bottle and it's crying all the time, he was really good about that.
Yeah, she was all right.
Right.
I mean, I guess it was all right, or she wouldn't have had so damn many kids.
Well, you had a big part to do with that.
No, she was good. I wouldn't want nobody else. Well, yeah, we took a lot of family trips. Almost every week we went to some place of interest, a national park or something.
Usually, yes, because on Fridays I usually would cook up a meal, get something all prepared. Then on Saturday we would go to a national park or somewhere. Maybe it'd take us 5 or 6 hours to get there. We took them over to Santa Claus, Indiana one time. We took them to all these parks where they had trails to walk, and we'd have a picnic there. It would be an all-day thing. We took the kids all the time. I always had to check Kelly's pockets because he was always bringing little creatures home. I know one time I had all kinds of bugs. When I put the clothes away, found all kinds of bugs in his drawer because of stuff that he had brought home. So, but yeah, we take them on all these trips, lots of trips. We did a lot of things with the kids.
Did you ever lose any of them?
Yeah, we did lose a couple at different places. Lesorsville Lake, we lost our son David once, and that's kind of really, really scary when you lose track of one of your kids. But we found him right away sitting in an office where they were giving him ice cream. He was sitting there with a big smile on his face when we found him. Coming on our trips to Florida, we made several trips to Florida, coming down and left our daughter Annette at one of the welcome stations. I thought we had 2 carloads coming down, and I thought she was in the car behind us. And as we were pulling out, all of a sudden you hear, "Mom!" Annette comes running out. I happened to catch her in the rear view mirror. I'm like, that would have broken my heart if I'd left her behind. This is what happens when you have so many children. But yeah, we left a couple of them a few different times at places, but fortunately, we found them right away.
For the record, did you ever move and not tell one of your children?
That never happened. I had a child, one of my children, and we moved to Florida, that says that we moved to Florida without telling him. But there's no way I would have ever done that. It took us 4 months to sell our house, and he was home every weekend, so I know he had to know we were moving to Florida, but he said that we left him behind and he didn't know that. But yes, we did move an awful lot. We did move a lot in our lifetime, but there's no way I would have left him behind.
And if the kids didn't behave when we were driving, I wouldn't go back there and physically beat them. I'd just run over their leg. Kelly had a bad habit of opening the door, and I'd say, wait till I stop. And he didn't wait, so I ran over his legs. But it screwed me up and the whole family, because then he had to take the whole back of the station wagon because he had a cast on it and all that other crap. But he learned after that.
He didn't purposely run over his leg. Kelly would open the door and put his foot on the ground before the car was stopped, and so that back wheel of the car would catch his foot and whip him out on the ground. Fortunately, it was in sand, so he never actually broke his leg, but Kelly had a habit of doing that. So. Well, that is the easiest thing there to answer. That was the worst thing in our life, was when our daughter Annette was stabbed 17 times to death by her husband. Worst thing that could happen to anybody. The thing that we learned from that, I think, was really to trust God. Instead of getting angry with God over that, was knowing that I know that God could have saved her. If he wanted to, he could have prevented her from dying. So I never questioned him. I had to trust that he knew what was best. Perhaps he knew what kind of a life that Stacy and Tara would have had she lived. I don't know what the reason was before that, but it taught me to trust God and to feel that he had a plan, that he knew what was best. So that's what I really had to learn out of that situation, because I know that he had the power for her to live. Had he wanted her, well, I don't think he wanted her to die, but he had a plan and he knew what was best out of that. But it was a horrible, horrible thing that for somebody to lose their child. And I saved that name, Annette. I had a reason for saving that, and maybe that's why he saved that for the third child, because she was so special. My family means the world to me. I know I have had a lot of people think that we were crazy, think we were totally out of our mind to have 9 children. But I feel like I was blessed with each and every one of them, and that family means the world to me. I feel so blessed to have these children, and like I said, I wouldn't change a thing. A total blessing. I would say spaceships were the great invention. Television, I remember I was thinking we probably were one of the first people of all my friends that get a TV, and it was black and white. The only thing they had on it was wrestling, and I hate wrestling, but it was the only thing that they had on. It's the only thing we could watch, but I thought it was really neat. So to have a TV, to have a picture in your house to watch a TV, I thought was really great. And cell phones, smartphones, I mean, unbelievable that you can carry a phone around with you with no wires connected. You can get any information you want in the world on a cell phone. I think that's a great invention. I can tell you what I miss about the old days. Today's world is too rushed, too hurried. The old days, it seemed like everybody took their time to do everything. Today, everybody's got their face buried in a phone. Today, in the old days, it seemed like, well, back then you didn't have TVs, you didn't have people coming home from work. Well, nowadays both couples are working. Back in our day, the husbands worked, the wife was at home taking care of the house, doing the household chores. Nowadays, usually both parents are working. So they both come home, they're both tired, they're wore out, they gotta run to the grocery shopping, gotta do the housework, all the chores and everything. it's everything is so hurried. They have to run out to do this, to do that. There's so much rushing around. They don't really take time to really enjoy life the way it used to be, with the TVs on, their phone buried into their phones all the time. Just the olden days, everything, it was just so peaceful, and I don't know, you didn't have all the crime and everything that you have today. I just really enjoyed the older days when things were so much peace and calm, and people communicated and talked together and enjoyed life together.
Right.
Spent so much time together that today families are separated and running all different directions. Well, I would say the flood in 1937 actually occurred. The Ohio River actually crested at 80 feet on the day I was actually born, in January 18, 1937. That occurred, and actually Neil Armstrong actually walked on the moon. Well, and World War II occurred in our lifetime, which was really a bad war. Well, we visited.
Hawaii.
Where?
Hawaii.
Well, Hawaii was really beautiful. It was really, everything is so lush and green in Hawaii. They must have rain there all the time with the rainforest and everything. It's absolutely beautiful. But I also have to say the Grand Canyon is unbelievable. Unbelievable. The way I guess that flood actually dates all the way back to the Noah's flood, actually when God actually flooded the earth. With the flooding from back then, is how all those canyons came through there. The flooding that went through there and the erosion, if you've ever been to the Grand Canyon and seen how wide and how deep, and the colors that go through the Grand Canyon are absolutely beautiful. Well, I do have several songs that I really like. I know the song that we danced to, but I also have another song too from church that I really like, was Lord.
Jerusalem?
No, it was Lord, When You Came to the Seashore. I really like that song, but I also like Anne Murray's Could I Have This Dance. I really like that song. It's our favorite song together. Yeah, Jerusalem is really a nice song too.
And we got up and walked out on it this morning. I don't think I could have did better.
I think he was a fantastic pick. Never stopped loving him. Never want another one.
Me neither.
Yeah.
You picked the right
We're
brother.
stuck together. Yes, I picked the right brother. Well, I am proud of my family. Very, very proud of my family. And I have to say I'm proud of my dad. I am proud of my dad because in the end he actually overcame his alcoholism. So, and yes, I'm proud of my dad and I'm proud of my family.
I don't talk much.
I would like to say to all the families to always make sure that you make time for each other. So many times people just put everything else ahead of their families and their family life and that. But to make sure that you, first of all, put God first, and then your family. Make time that you spend time with your family, your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, your uncles. spend a lot of time with them, enjoying each other. There's nothing like family life. I think it was a blessing. God has blessed people with families, and I think you should share that time together with your families and helping each other in your, not only, well, especially with families, but also with people around you.
Is that a mixed drink?
No.
I dare you to say that.
Powder.
Grandpa's gonna be like, line.